Hey everyone, Doug here with B&H, and we just finished a long, tiring, very hot shoot about this, Canon's brand new EOS R5 Mark II. This is it, it's finally here. 4 years after the original R5, a lot has changed in the camera landscape, especially what can be done under the hood here. There's a lot to discuss. We're gonna go into it specifically in each section, but let's just get some key specs out of the way. 45 megapixels of resolution, same as before, but this is a newly designed backside illuminated stacked CMOS sensor, so completely new design, and that promises updates to image quality in general. Now, when we talk about that, we usually also have to talk about processing. The DIGIC X processor in the original is still here, but now it's assisted by something called the DIGIC accelerator. They work in conjunction with one another, and the DIGIC accelerator is used to process huge volumes of information, not just in continuous rates with a steady stream of photos, but also per photo. So you have things like eye, face, body position, the movement of limbs and joints, and it can even in some modes track the motion of a ball. Now, we're gonna talk about all of the AF improvements and enhancements in just a bit, because trust me, there's a lot of them. Continuous modes take you up to 30 FPS here. We're talking video frame rates at that point, and we're gonna show you some examples later on. But in addition to that, the camera now has a pre-continuous shooting mode, which lets you get a half second at half the frame rate of your continuous rate. So in other words, if you're at 30 FPS, the highest burst, then you get 15 frames before you even finish pressing the shutter. It's a lifesaver, trust me. Now, the ISO range is the same as before. You have a maximum of 51,200, but Canon's got something a little different going on here. Now, there's a machine learning assisted function called the neural network noise reduction. Now, that happens after you take the photo, but still in camera, and that's to get you a little more of a clean image after you reach into those upper regions of the ISO range. So say you really do need to push it up that high, that could save some of your images. So we're gonna show you how that works later on, but believe it or not, it's not the only machine learning assisted function on board here. And of course, we're gonna talk about video as well. The original R5 had 8K 30p raw video. This brings it up a notch to 60p. So you have 8K 60p raw internal recording video, along with 4K 120 FPS and 1080p 240 FPS. All of those modes with full autofocus and full auto exposure support, of course. First, let's start with the biggest improvements of all, the autofocus. Let's go. So looking back at what we just captured, I kept things pretty simple, already getting phenomenal results. This is a very tricky situation behind me. This is very backlit. We do have some fill lights here to just even things out a little bit and give a little bit of separation. Tack sharp focus. Seeing it through the viewfinder, I never saw it really drift or hunt in any way. It just immediately locked on. So I'm very impressed. Very dramatic style right here, right out of the gate. Now, the reason I'm looking so early at these before really diving in is because I'm not really using any assistive functions other than the IAF. And that means that this is kind of like I'm going blind. So out of the box approach, this is realistically how most people are going to photograph anything, really. And I gotta say, it feels like I'm cheating sometimes, how good it is, how good it can guess exactly where my eye is going and focus right on it. I have no pre-registration. There is no data stored on the camera as to who I'm looking for. The only time you're gonna be able to pre-register is if you're aware of the person. So if it's a team, if it's an individual subject that you're working with, that could be a case where you're able to pre-register their faces and either prioritize them or deprioritize them, which is exactly what I'm going to do. So not only am I going to get our dancer's face here, but I'm also going to get 2 of our crew members so that we can reject them and only focus on her. So let's go over that process right now. So to pre-register faces, you have to just get a photo. I know it's a little overexposed here in the background, but it doesn't matter for this. Then we go into the menu, go over to pre-registration, turn it on, and then add, as you can see, register from card. It immediately finds the face. We just see the face and the hand, choose the face, hit set, and it should be registered right away. So let's skip ahead a little bit. I already took the photos of our crew members. We'll go right back into the menu, register people priority under AF, just as before. Set, go down to register people from image on card, and look how happy they are. Well, good thing they're not gonna be any more shots. So, because we're gonna set their faces. Now you can see it immediately found both faces. We're gonna register this one first, set, register, okay. continue registering, yes. We're gonna go to this, set, okay. No more, all right. And then we have here change or delete priority of registered people. So now we have the whole lineup here. Now we want to move our dancer up, and that should be it. So we just need to make sure she's number 1 here. We'll hit set, okay, menu, that should be good. So as you can see here, it is only identifying our dancer even though both our crew members are in frame. If I move the camera, it does identify, you can see the icon, but it's not losing focus until I actually intentionally go right over to them. All right, so we're just taking a break right now. I just took a bunch of photos in the last few minutes, all with the highest speed continuous setting of 30 FPS on this camera. Now that gets you, basically you're talking video frame rates at that point, 30 FPS. If you scroll through it, as I was doing before, it looks like video. And it's crazy because you're getting those full resolution raw images at the same time anyway. So you have a lot of flexibility here to really freeze motion and capture just every little detail of what's going on. Now for movements like this, that's everything. We want that. We're gonna do real video later, but to see it in still is just kind of insane. Now that's combined here with the pre-continuous shooting, which can honestly sometimes be a lifesaver. You're looking at half a second at half the frame rate of your burst rate. So what that means is if we're in 30 FPS, which is what we're at now, you have 15 frames prior to your full shutter actuation. So basically, as you half press the shutter to get your focus, for example, you're automatically at all times capturing 15 frames continuously until the moment you hit the shutter. And then of course, you're just into full standard continuous shooting. Now you do have to technically engage the pre-continuous shooting mode. So I have it here enabled for the entire day. If you're in single, it's not gonna work because that's a single shot. You're not in continuous at that moment. So you do have to be in a drive mode that has anything above single shot. And then from there, when you half press, you will see in the viewfinder, it says pre. That indicates to you that it's getting those frames prior to your actual full shutter press. So we're just gonna have a little fun right now with some flash photography. I did a little bit back there already against the window. Beautiful backdrop of the city, but I got some reflections in the window, which makes sense. I did my best to avoid it, but some of the photos are just gorgeous. Anyway, right back here, I'm gonna do it in a more controlled environment. We got kind of black curtain stage setup going. We'll do a bit of a spotlight look, and since it's controlled, no reflections. We're just gonna have some fun with it, and then we'll jump right into video. Hey everyone, so I actually got to cut myself off for a sec. So when we shot this review, the pre-production model that we had wasn't able to record 8K RAW, and we weren't able to get footage there on the initial shoot. But we were fortunate enough to get our hands on the camera one more time and managed to grab some 8K 60p RAW footage around the neighborhood. So let's take a look. The R5 II's RAW footage is stunningly crisp and clean, as you'd expect. For such a bright outdoor environment, we didn't expect any noise, of course, but the real treat here is how the dynamic range handles the extremely bright sunny conditions. We also have some extra flexibility when it comes to the white balance, so in tricky conditions like this, we can wiggle the white balance to warm up the bluer, shaded parts of the park with minimal effort. And of course, all with autofocus and auto exposure if you need it. But anyway, let's get back to our location shoot and check out some 4K CLog2 footage. So let's talk a little bit about the video I shot before. It looks incredible. Going down the list, we have a few new formats. The 8K 60p RAW, 4K 60p S RAW, which is a smaller RAW format. It's 840 megabits versus the 2600 you see on the 8K. And then of course we have 1080p up to 240 FPS. So if you're the kind who loves beautiful, crisp, slow motion footage, this camera's got you covered in many ways. Now there's also a bunch of things in here for those looking more into the cinema and broadcast side of things to keep things a little more in the certain professional workflow. The one that stuck out to me was the inclusion of XF HEVC and XF AVC-S, both of those being new codecs that were recently announced in the C400 if you're following the cinema line of things. But that means that you can include this in those workflows. You can use this right alongside in tandem with the Cinema EOS line. And on top of that, they've included CLog2, which in itself is very rare to find on the mirrorless still bodies. Usually that's only reserved for the video camera bodies. Oh, and one more thing they included here that you don't usually see in those bodies is a waveform monitor. That's right, you actually have access here to both a line and RGB type, so you can see exactly how your color balance is alongside the video levels. It's a crucial professional feature that anyone who's used those cameras will know is sorely lacking from most still bodies. So before I mention something about machine learning assisted functions on the camera, there are actually two of them here. Now the first one is the neural network noise reduction. That happens on raw images still in camera after you take them though. So basically you take a shot, has to be raw, you then go into playback, into the menu, you choose your raw image, and apply neural network denoising to it, save it back to the card. It's surprisingly effective. It's also very natural looking, clean. It still maintains a lot of facial texture, hair texture in particular I noticed, so I'm very impressed. This was on an ISO 12800 shot if I'm not mistaken, and I used the high denoising mode. So the fact that it could do it and still retain all that detail is quite impressive. Now the second feature is the inbuilt image upscaling. That only works on JPEG images, and that's basically to get you from the 45 megapixel image to a 179 megapixel image. The body of the R5 II, very similar to before, but what we have are a couple of changes to both the side and the bottom. We have a new battery here, the LP-E6P. Now this provides higher output and higher capacity, which is necessary for those 8K recordings. You don't need any kind of external power to do that here. So all built in, it's a new battery. And then on the side here, if we open up the ports, very interesting change here. We have a full-size HDMI port. Now that's actually a very distinct change. Even the R5C doesn't have that. So full-size HDMI port, USB-C, mic, headphone jack, and flash sync port. On the side here, you have your dual card slot arrangement, CF Express Type B and SDXC cards. Today we're only shooting with CF Express. Now on the rear, we don't have many changes here. This is the same EVF and LCD as before, but up top we've got a couple of changes. So one thing that's similar to the R5C, but not quite the same functionally, is the movie and still switch. So you have movie, stills. It does not switch the menu like it does on that camera. It's the same, it's all inclusive here. And then of course we have the lock between the off and on. So right here, if you want to lock your functionality. And then there's also a lock on the hot shoe cover. Very unique situation going on here. You have to really press it and push back, which allows you to then slide the cover off. So that's not going anywhere very easily. You can easily put it right back on. Snaps on, nice and snug. All right, time to discuss grips, because there are 3 of them, in fact. So the standard battery grip, which usually is what you think of when you ask for one, is just that. It's a vertical grip that has vertical controls, offers additional battery power, of course. So now the one here is a combined Ethernet and fan grip. This does not have vertical control, but it does provide a 2.5 gig RJ45 connection right on the side here, giving you wired internet support. So if you need the most reliable, fastest connection possible for press or agency work, this will get that for this camera. And on top of that, it provides a fan, which is crucial for increasing your recording times when shooting 8K video, for example. Now, that doesn't mean you can't do it without that, but it does increase your recording time. It does give you a little more peace of mind. Now, there's a third grip as well. That's just with the Ethernet port and vertical control, but no fan. So you have 3 options for you, whatever works for your production. So that's it for our time today with Canon's EOS R5 Mark II, a phenomenal camera. I had a blast using it today. Some of the shots I got just kind of took my breath away in the moment. Taking a look after the fact, I almost couldn't believe I got the shot because the AF really is that good. A lot of the improvements that are in the R1 are also here. I would say the vast majority of them. And the fact that there's these awesome technological improvements, like the machine learning assisted functions here, is just something to kind of marvel at, because I never thought we would see something like neural network noise reduction in the camera or upscaling in the camera. It's pretty amazing. So that's it for my time. Let us know in the comments below how you could use the EOS R5 Mark II on your next shoot. I'm Doug with B&H, and I'll see you next time.